I didn't mention this in my video about starting our own online community, but one of the reasons for having our own place has to do with mental health. And I don't mean mental health in the sense of mental disorders. I mean that the internet is turning people into angry jerks, and it's not good for us. And we should be taking steps to avoid having our minds shaped by forces that are destroying society. Now, you may be thinking, who in the world is David Wood to tell people not to be a jerk? David is the king of jerks. But I have some insight here. It's kind of like a drug addict telling people to stay off drugs. In my defense, I used to be physically violent, so I think I'm doing pretty well when I'm just running my mouth at people. I wanted to talk about this here because if you're interested in apologetics or you criticize various ideologies, you're probably the sort of person who likes discussing things, maybe arguing with people online. And there are totally healthy ways to go about that. But we're living in a pretty unique stage of history. Some of you are too young to remember a time when people weren't constantly arguing with each other. 20 or 30 years ago, if you were arguing, you were probably arguing with a family member or a friend because there weren't constant opportunities to argue with other people. Where would you be arguing with other people? School? Work? The grocery store? Maybe. But then you'd go home and it would be over. You might argue with someone over something, but it was temporary. And later you'd be someplace where your brain would get a break. Now it's never over. It's all day, every day. We actually carry around devices in our pockets for arguing with people on social media. And the constant arguing with everyone reinforces pathways in our brains and keeps us in an aggressive mental state. I remember when I first got on Twitter, I ended up spending like 7 hours straight arguing with a few Muslims. Then I went to the kitchen to get some coffee, and my wife asked me something, and I snapped back at her. Then she asked something else, and I snapped at her again. Finally, she said, "Look, I'm not attacking you. I know you were just talking to a bunch of people who were attacking you, but I'm not attacking you. I'm just asking you a question." And I realized that I was just amped for aggression because I'd been firing back and forth for hours straight. Imagine what happens when we're in a hostile environment all day, every day. We become wired for aggression and hostility. And you can see the results all around us. People hate each other. So, on the one hand, there are a lot of stupid ideas in the world, and we need to show that certain ideas are bad and dangerous. But, on the other hand, we don't want to turn into angry jerks. So the question is how to find some balance. My theory is that instead of constantly being in hostile environments online, we need to spend more time in friendly environments with friends and people who share our interests and goals. When we see something online that we need to respond to, then we respond, we make our points, we expose the bad ideas, but then we return to our friends and let our brains calm down. Notice, this would be the online equivalent of how things were before the internet. You go out when you need to go out, you argue when you need to argue, but you come back home. Anyway, that's my theory about how we can avoid becoming hostile jerks in a world that's going absolutely insane.